I found out something very unsettling about Harry. Gambles. What do you mean he gambles? He plays craps in the back room of a private club. I mean, you know, you 11, come on, little Joe. Snake eyes, hard way. That's how it goes. He loses a lot of money. You had no idea? No, I didn't.
Welcome to the Crap Vegas podcast.
Vegas, here we come.
Vegas!
Here are your hosts, Chris and Josh.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 35 of the Crap Vegas podcast. I am Chris, he is Josh, and boy, we have really just switched up the dynamics for this one, Josh.
Yes, this is going to be a different kind of podcast for us. We got a whole bunch of things going on. First of all, I'm sick, so if you hear the occasional sneeze or cough or muted mic, all of a sudden that's why. And Chris is having
those damn Star Trek. Yeah, those damn Star Trek people. They got you sick when you came to the convention. And you're just now feeling it.
There's actually a name for it, Chris. When you come back from the Star Trek convention and you get sick, it's called the Kahn crud.
Of course there is. Why wouldn't there be a name for something like that? And to be fair to all our listeners, we're recording this, 2 weeks after that trip almost, Josh. It's Friday, and usually the patrons would get this today. They're going to get it tomorrow probably. But yeah, we're recording just before because Josh has been off cruising after he got back from vacation. I mean, he's just got so many trips, he doesn't even know what to do with his time.
I went from one vacation to another vacation and got sick in between. And meanwhile, you decided to take an impromptu vacation.
I did. Josh gave me a really bad time, and some of our listeners, especially on Patreon, did too, because they see some video content recorded around the same time. They said that my background, it just wasn't good because I was in an unfinished basement at my house and cats are running everywhere. There's a lot of stuff going on. So I said, okay, I'm going to change my visual, theme this time. And I am sitting in a suite at Aria right now as we speak.
Yes, Chris is having a lot more fun than I am. I'm homesick and he's sitting in a suite in Aria.
Yeah, I was just talking to Josh on Wednesday. I was like, I got nothing else going on this weekend. It's going to be a little slow. And I was like, well, and I've done this 100 times where I was like, maybe I'll go here. Maybe I'll go there. And this time, I actually bit the bullet. I booked a flight. I contacted our host at Aria real quick, got it all taken care of. It was last minute, so I didn't get a Sky Suite, Josh. They didn't have any available, but I do have a very nice center suite, although it is very disappointing because there's only one bathroom in there instead of the two that I'm used to.
Oh.
I didn't get to go into the fancy entrance when I came. It just wasn't the same experience.
You're just slumming it.
I am.
So did you
Go ahead.
Chris, what I was going to ask, we heard from Boondocks and I think a couple others on Twitter that Aria, well, you might not get, I don't know if it's just Sky Suites or not, but now Aria has some Phantoms, some Rolls-Royce Phantoms.
No, I did not. I got an Escalade, and I can say based off what I saw at the airport when I arrived literally 30 minutes ago, because we're doing this very quickly. I did not see any Phantoms that they had. However, with that being said, last trip when I was going back to the airport, I did see a Phantom with an MGM logo on the window. So they do exist. They're just not for me.
Well, and I'm glad that they did it because, as we've talked about before, the limos could use a little updating. They could.
Yeah,
as my dad would say, a little long in the tooth.
Yeah, they're getting a little bit old. And we joked about how they were going to cycle the Aria limos out and send those down to Luxor. Excalibur, which is exactly what they are going to do. I mean,
I'm sure that's what they're going to do.
That's not, no jokes aside on that one. But I will say, Josh, I did comment, it's worth mentioning since we're talking about transportation, when I got downstairs to the 0 level to get off, into my car to head over here, I saw a Circa limo. It's a stretch SUV. And they wrapped the whole thing in this hideous blue color that they're known for. And they have advertisements for their pool and everything on it. And maybe it's just me, but I don't want my luxurious transportation to be a rolling advertisement for a property. I mean, I did not like that. I like the understated look, and they are way overstated.
Yeah, there's a certain, if you're taking a limo to Circa, I think you maybe want to broadcast a little more than somebody taking a limo to Sky Suites or Wynn
I didn't think about it from that perspective. Okay, so let's try to do this thing, Josh. I'm using my laptop without an extra screen. I'm using a different mic that I'm literally holding in my hand while sitting on a couch here. So we'll see how this thing turns out, but we got tons to talk about. But before we do, we always have to tell you how to get in touch with us. So you can reach us via email. That's podcast@crapvegas.com. You can reach us on our Facebook page. That's crapvegas.com/Facebook. I think that's up to almost 500 members now, so that's really cool. Glad to see people joining every day.
Me too.
You can reach us via voicemail. That's crapvegas.com/voicemail. Or the easiest way is always going to be on Twitter. He's at Vegas Duffy. I'm at SmallWhale13. Or the show page is at Crap Vegas. And yes, we do have a Threads account for each of us with the same names, but no, I have not been on it in the past month or two. So if you're becoming a friend of mine on there and I see those pop-ups on my phone, thank you. I just haven't used that yet. X/Twitter has not pissed me off far enough that I'm going to get over there full time yet, but it's in the background.
One thing, Chris, I like about you being on this different mic in Vegas, you sound a little less professional than you usually do. So it makes me think I sound better because you're on the, I know. It reminds me, though, I did the same thing back in episode 1, way back in episode 1. I was using the handheld mic the same way you are. So it brings me way back to the days of our infancy of our podcast.
Thank God we have this professional audio editor, Josh, now, who can fix the levels, because I can just tell as I'm sitting here, like my arm will get tired. I want to move the mic back or forward. And he's going to have a real hard time editing that and making it sound amazing.
The magic of technology will fix us.
Yeah, but that's okay. So let's get into the good stuff, Josh, since we got so much to talk about. Previous episode feedback. We got an email from Tommy talking about low limits in Vegas, because we had a listener last time asking us about, should he save up and play at a nicer place? Should he play low limits? He said, hey guys, wanted to comment on listener Johnny asking about lower limits for Vegas strip properties. I was in Vegas twice earlier this summer, and I usually stay on the south end of the strip. I can confirm that Oyo has $10 craps tables pretty much whenever the table is open. He said they played there on a Friday and a Saturday night, and it was $10. And the table wasn't busy either night. The crews were great, definitely willing to help out newer players. I would highly recommend it for someone just starting out. There's no bonus bets. It's a regular craps table, not crapless, and it's definitely a non-intimidating environment. He says Tropicana, Excalibur, New York, and Luxor all had $15 craps minimums, with Trop and Excalibur having $10 some mornings. A lot of those places depend on the crew working as to how friendly the game is, how willing they are to show patience for new players, etc. I've always had good crews at Excalibur, which I believe has been echoed on the show before. All in all, if someone is just learning craps and not wanting to feel intimidated or out of place, there's a ton of options on the south side of the strip. Hope this helps the listener.
That's great information. That really, it kind of makes sense in line with what you'd expect for some of those properties on the south end of the strip. But it's good to know, because I know that, $25 craps, $50 craps, even $15 craps can be too much for a lot of people. So it's really good to know that on the strip, there are still places you can go to find $10 craps, or, maybe even you might stumble upon a $5 table once in a while, but at least 10. And I think that's a good entry point for a lot of people. So thanks very much, Tommy.
Yeah, I agree. Good information from him there. And I'll pass along, Josh, because I've seen it myself. You've seen it. And I've seen it on Twitter a lot recently. You will still find, especially midweek, a $15 table at Wynn Encore.
Yep.
Especially Encore. When wins are high, you can still sometimes find a $15 table at Encore. And they'll usually keep it at $15 up until noon, 2 o'clock. So, don't rule them out completely if you want to have that luxurious experience with lower table limits. I'm not saying you're going to find a $10 game, but you will find a $15 game at both those properties, especially midweek, early morning.
Yeah, and I would kind of amplify that a little bit. I think some of the properties, Aria, we've seen $15 first thing in the morning sometimes, and I know we've seen that at other mid-strip properties, especially in the morning. And, it depends on the property as to whether or not you can get grandfathered in for a period of time. But if you can, getting grandfathered in at those lower levels can also, hopefully you can play all day and still keep going at a $15 table or a $10 table.
Yep, you got to pull a Dr. Bike. Once you walk up to that table, you're not walking away for anything. It doesn't matter what it's for. There's no restroom breaks. There's nothing. You just stay at that table and keep that grandfathering in.
I have the ability to I can stay at a table for a long time, no matter how much, soda I drink or whatever. I can stand there for an awful long time before I have to take a bathroom break. Chris, what about you?
I try to take them more frequently. I don't want to be uncomfortable at the table. And luckily, I usually have a craps buddy right next to me that's on this podcast.
That just plays your hand
that just plays my money for you, so I don't really miss anything. So that comes in handy. Where was it, Josh, that we heard a person recently say that when they got grandfathered in, when the rates went up, that they only had 30 minutes.
That was actually, Chris, I was going to talk about that a little later in the show. That was me at Rio at the Star Trek convention. I texted you that. You got it mixed up.
That's why okay, well, we have so many channels and I hear so many things that I can't keep track where it comes from. But I knew I heard that recently.
You stole my Rio thunder. Well, yeah, since we're talking about it. So I was at the Star Trek convention at Rio and played a little dice there. Not a ton, but since we're talking about it, it was a $5 table most of the time at Rio, which was fantastic. Every once in a while, 10, but quite often it was a $5 table. And this is both weekends and weekdays, days and evenings. It was easy to find it for 10 and quite a bit for 5. But as you said, one of the goofy things, it was a $5 table one time when I jumped in, and they raised it to 10 and allowed everybody to be grandfathered at $5 for 30 minutes, which I hadn't heard of a time cutoff like that before.
Yeah, I mean, well, I say I haven't really seen that at a craps table too much, Josh, but then I think if I'm at a blackjack table, I've seen plenty of places that raise the limit and they said next shoe, it goes to a quarter.
Right.
Or something like that. I've seen that where they wouldn't grandfather in and gave you one more shoe. I guess this is the craps equivalent.
Kind of the same thing, yeah.
And now that I think about it, those were Caesar's properties that were doing that back then. So I guess this is just the Caesar's craps equivalent. Instead of giving you one more shoe, you get 15, 30 minutes, whatever they think is reasonable.
And it was, it obviously didn't bother me much, but I thought it was fine. And going from 5 to 10 is not that big a deal. I'll say that, craps at Rio was fine. I've always liked playing craps at Rio. I thought the dealers were good. They were, very appreciative of tips and supportive of just the playing and that kind of thing. And the same boxman that I saw last year at the Star Trek convention was there this time. His name is Joby. And nice guy that, always comes up and has a little bit of Star Trek trivia that I think he's told me the same thing, for the last 5 years in a row that I played. He doesn't remember me, but I remember him. But it was a good, they were fun crews, and I didn't play a ton, but.
There's nothing wrong with that, Josh. How many times do we have craps dealers that tell the same 6 jokes over and over again? And you've heard them so many times that you know the punchline at this point. But you do the same things at the table. You tell the same 4 jokes every time I play with you.
I only have so much material. I depend on new dealers, or else I'm doing the same material over and over and over. You were talking about the bathroom break, and my line, if I come back from the bathroom and I've had bets going, or I jump in and I play, 135 across or 270 across, and then, in the middle of a roll or whatever, when I come back from the bathroom, if we had hit a quick 7 out, I'll say, darn it, I should have stayed and washed my hands.
Yes, he does that a lot. And I can't tell you how many times on a press move, whether he's going from 60 to 90, 90 to 120, 120 to 150, I'll say, because I always act first, the way we stand at tables, for some reason, I'm always action first compared to Josh, but I'll say, oh, take that to 150. And then Josh will say, 152, he thinks he's being funny, and then you always have to make the joke, well, Josh, you better throw in the $2, or something stupid like that. But that is just who Josh is. He's going to use the same dad jokes every time.
Or first thing in the morning, we're at the table and the cocktail server will come by and I'll order a Diet Coke and
Diet Coke and orange juice. Yep.
And then I'll say separate, please.
Yes, as if there was some confusion there.
And it cracks me up every time, which is all
you laugh every time, and then I have to laugh, so you don't feel bad. Yeah. Okay, Josh. Other things that we got. Talking about Boondocks that you mentioned earlier, he sent us a couple comments. I think it was on Patreon. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they were relevant to our last episode. He said that his noir status happened at 2 million points, and he was told he had to get 2 million to keep it. I wanted to mention that because we said, what is that number, that magical number out there? But the more I go down that rabbit hole, it sure seems like there's a heavy loss component associated with it.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I've seen people that got it at 1 million points and people that didn't get it at 4. And the common thread seems to be their win-loss wasn't exactly what you wanted it to be. So maybe just Theo loss isn't enough. You better have taken some strong losses during the year if you want to be considered for noir level.
As much fun as I think it would be to get to noir, I don't know if it's going to happen for us. Keep in mind, Boondocks also is primarily a slot player, so that's a different kind of, a little bit different kind of animal. But it would be fun to do it. Maybe if we focus all our play next year, as we've said, we might do it. But it's good to do that. 2 million points is, at least we have a number to shoot for.
It's good to have a goal, Josh. And the other thing he pointed out, Josh, he said he always tips $40 each way on a limo. That made me feel cheap, and maybe that I wasn't giving enough. So on the ride from the airport today, I gave $40. I did because I didn't. You know me. I don't want to be outdone, and I don't want to feel like a cheapskate. So I solved that problem.
So Boondocks tip shamed you into the $40 limo ride, huh?
He absolutely
Escalade
did.
Ride, and that wasn't even going to Sky Suites.
Nope, like I said, no Sky Suites this time, so I just gave him the $40 and I was happy, he was happy, everybody's happy. So that's a good way to be.
There we go.
Okay, so Josh, it feels like 6 years ago, but since the last episode, we took a trip to Vegas. You had your convention going on early in the week. I joined you as of Friday. But before we even get into any of the details, and there's tons of fun things to talk about, we really didn't see each other very much that weekend.
No, we only saw each other, I think, on Saturday morning for Unusual Coffee Dice, right? We didn't get together. You came Friday. I was there starting Wednesday and doing Star Trek stuff nonstop. And then Chris got there Friday, and I had a Star Trek thing on Friday night, so we couldn't get together. And we almost didn't make Saturday morning work. In fact, I had texted you, Chris, and said, how much would it hurt if we didn't get together at all?
No, and I didn't want Josh to feel bad, so I told him it wasn't a big deal at all, and it wasn't. So we didn't even think we were going to see each other at all. But yeah, we did get together for a coffee dice session. We'll talk about it in a little bit and the trip coming over. But yeah, the whole weekend we only spent maybe 2 hours together combined. So we had a lot of interesting things happen to each of us individually. But Josh, since you got there first, and I know you're big on chronological order. That's always been a theme of this podcast. You can't go out of order.
So this time,
But let's talk about it, though, Josh. You got there Wednesday. The convention's at Rio, but you were staying at Caesar's Palace.
Yep, I was staying at Caesar's Palace. So I can't remember if I mentioned it on the last show or not, but I decided at the last minute, the last minute to rent a car. So I got me a
you came
really
to regret
nice
that
set
decision.
of wheels. Yeah.
That was the junkiest car I have ever seen in my life from a rental agency. I can't believe they gave that to a person.
It wasn't a Mazda. It was a Mitsubishi.
It was a Lancer.
Was that
like
what it was?
Yeah, like
I don't know what it
like
was.
It was like a 1992 Lancer is what it looked like. There was there was graffiti tags on it. It was missing a hubcap, a plastic hubcap.
It was missing a hubcap.
And we were trying to get up the ramp and out of Aria. I didn't think it was going to make it up the hill.
This thing had 39,000 miles on it, which I've never seen 39,000 miles on a rental car before. It had Utah plates, and the plates were all kind of bent up and warped out of shape. The car, as Chris said, getting up the parking garages at the various properties was almost impossible for this car. But so I rented the car and headed over to check in at Caesars. And, we've heard those horror stories about checking in at Caesars lately. And
did it take you 2 hours to get checked in?
Well, so I had done the mobile check-in thinking, I'll try and head that off. But I knew at some point I was still going to have to give my ID or whatever you had to do for mobile check-in. But I got there, and admittedly, this was 2:00 on Wednesday afternoon. And I had paid, by the way, the whatever it is, $30 or something for early check-in.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. It was like 2:00 on Wednesday. I just, wanted to have my room and go in. And so I was willing to pay the upgrade fee or whatever it is for early check-in. So I went to the mobile check-in line, or actually I went to the regular check-in line because there was nobody in line. So I saw a real person, and she was, pretty friendly. And,
and you did the $20 trick to get an upgrade?
I did not. I didn't care about the $20 trick.
Okay, fair.
So my room was in the Octavius Tower, which is one of the...
I stayed there before.
Or was it Augustus? Now I'm confused. I forgot.
I stayed in both. They're the newer constructed towers.
Yes. I think it was, now that I'm saying it, I think it was Augustus. Anyway, whichever it was. Yeah, I've forgotten which of the two was. But it's, they are the nicer, well, they were nicer, as you said, Chris, because they were newly constructed. But I'll say this about the rooms. When you go in, the room is beautiful, not beautiful, but really nice looking room. You can tell it was pretty luxurious when it was built. But as you'd expect with a lot of Caesars, they haven't done any upgrades on it. No maintenance, so it has the bones of a really nice room. And I'm not, it wasn't a bad room, but it just didn't have the extra touches that you would expect on a nicer properties room.
Yeah, that's always been what I found with Caesars properties. When the rooms are brand new, they're awesome. They're great rooms. When I used to go to Cromwell all the time, especially when it first opened, I loved that place. The rooms had really cool decor. They were awesome. But what happens, what it seems with all Caesars property, is every year they get degraded a little bit more. They never fix them, and then things just start disappearing out of rooms too. Like when I used to go to Cromwell all the time, they had a mini bar and snacks on the top of the dresser, and then that disappeared. And then they had chessboards in a lot of the rooms, and then the chess pieces disappeared because they didn't want to keep replacing them.
Of course they would. Yeah.
I mean, and they just never, and they used to have like hair products and stuff for women that they could buy that were on a shelf right next to like a makeup mirror, which was really unique. That disappeared. And then all of a sudden the furniture had big holes in it and scratches, and they just don't upkeep it like other properties do.
Well, I mean, the room had one USB port, and it was in the desk by the TV. So if you wanted to plug in anything by your bed, you had to use a standard outlet, just find the outlet in the wall. And it had, the tech was so outdated. I sent Chris a picture.
You did.
It had the old red, yellow, green audio cable inputs. If you wanted to plug a device in and have it run through the TV or whatever, you could use those old cables.
Yeah, you get those and composite cable some places still.
Right.
I always tell Josh, what cracks me up and the place that you can always tell is dated, and Caesars properties are known for this. They'll have that alarm clock that has an iPod hookup on top of it where you can plug your phone in, but it's the old 13. It's the old 13-pin iPod connector that hasn't been around in 10 plus years.
Anyway, so the Caesars room was fine. It was. I wouldn't hesitate to stay there again. There wasn't anything wrong with it. The room was fine. It was a little, I smelled pot every once in a while in the hallways, but nothing in the room. The room itself was just fine. It was just dated. It was just dated and not really kept up. At one point, Chris, again, as you'd expect from Caesars, one night I came back and 3 of the 5 elevators were down to the tower.
Wow. Well, that's nice. Yeah, that's very convenient.
Felt like I was staying at Imperial Palace again with those elevators.
Exactly.
Anyway, so I did play a little tiny bit of dice at Caesars. Actually, a fair bit of dice at Caesars.
Good.
And some highlights.
More than you planned on. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
just
ended
not with me.
Cutting to the end of the episode content. This trip was not a winner for me, whereas Chris had an opposite.
Oh, it was a great trip for me, Josh. I loved it. It was the best trip I've had in months.
But anyway, I played some dice at Caesars, and not a huge ton, but a couple interesting little bits. Caesars has the repeater bet instead of all tall small, right?
I said we definitely saw it at Rio. Yeah.
Yep. And they had it. That was the feature bet that was working on the tables I played. So I didn't play it. But it was interesting to see that, Caesars is definitely still on board with the repeaters in some properties. And the dealers, I thought, kind of as we always make fun of Caesars dealers, they are the dealers that seem to have been in Vegas dealing for 57 years. But they were nice.
Yeah,
and friendly.
That's where you go to die and retire for sure.
But I found them to be friendly and not too cranky for dealers that have been there a long time. And I enjoyed it. Overall, I enjoyed it. I tried to mix up my play a little with some. I placed the 6 and 8, and then did a comeback.
Okay. Just try to do some fun, different stuff since it was lower limits.
Yeah, because I wasn't trying it right. Overall, I wasn't crazy about that as far as a way to play. It's hard to get your bets pressed up, and I like to, if a roll is going really well, I like to, boost those bets up a little bit. And you can do it as a come better, but it's just harder. So with the way I was playing with placing the 6 and 8, if the 6 hit or the 8 hit, the come bet would go up there. So all of a sudden, if I was playing with a $30 6, I'd have, I don't remember what it was, I think it was a $15 table. Let's say a $15 table, and I might do $30 in odds. So it wasn't that much more, it didn't feel like I had the ability to press it up as much if the roll got going really well.
So you just weren't very good at raising that base come bet level so that you can increase the odds on it.
Yeah, that's what I, probably should have done. But so I quickly kind of went back to just placing the 6 and 8 or placing the evens as we do. Or I even did a few times. I think when we played together, I just went back to 135 across.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
I'm kind of back on board the 5 and 9 as far as placing all the numbers.
I mean, I
go back and forth.
It's like my favorite thing that I'm not supposed to do nowadays is play the 5 and 9, and I find myself adding it more and more when we play just the evens, especially if the table's running really well. Then I'll add it pretty darn quickly. But I mean, we aren't going to fast forward too far, Josh. But when you and I did play together this weekend at a lower level property, we did play across.
Yeah, we did, and I enjoyed that. So I might mix that in from time to time. So overall, Caesars, I liked it. I wouldn't hesitate to stay there again. It's not going to be my destination of choice. A couple other things. We did the Bacchanal buffet at Caesars one time.
Now, did you pay for that out of pocket or was it comped?
Well, no, I did pay for it out of pocket. And Won't cut to the end, but didn't get much of it comped off either at the at the end of the trip. So had the Bacchanal buffet and also did on this trip the Wynn buffet twice, which I don't even know if I told you. Yeah.
No, you didn't, but I have done that before with you.
Yep.
Even though I don't love buffet, so
snuck over to Wynn. Montana says hi, by the way.
You didn't play there, did you?
No. All I did is go to the Wynn, use my Wynn comp dollars, and get 2 free. Yeah.
Now that is interesting. Like I thought you were going in like, in just
incognito,
the card hidden. Yeah, and keeping the card hidden and not doing that. I mean, you took a $0 gambling day to do that.
I know, and I was willing to live with the consequences of my actions.
And even worse than that, Josh, not only did you take a $0 gambling day, now the host is like, what the fuck? He's in town. He didn't come over and even play. He just came and used his comp dollars for a buffet.
And I used my black card to cut the line, too.
Look at you. See, I would have been okay with you using the card to cut the line and not comping it off.
Right.
And using your points. But wow, that was a bold move there.
Well, we'll see if it, half of these things, I mean, we talk about it doesn't seem to end up making a difference in the long run anyway. So we'll see.
That's true.
I decided I was just going to live on the edge and use my comp dollars at Wynn. And
I was going to say, now, talking about food, did you get room service at Caesar's Palace at all?
Did not. In fact, I don't think I even, with the exception of the one night at Bacchanal, I don't think I even ate at Caesar's. I didn't go to the food court, anything like that. One of the nice things about having a car was,
true. Yeah.
I could just go wherever. If I wanted fast food, I could go wherever, drive myself to wherever.
Or in your case, if you just wanted frozen, Love It frozen custard 3 times a day, that's just what you did.
Did do that 3 times this last trip. So that was fun. One other thing I want to say about the Caesar's buffet before I forget is we had made a reservation for it. This was the first time as I was with some of my Star Trek friends, and one had made a reservation for the buffet because I don't have any status at Caesar's that lets me cut the line or anything like that anymore. So that worked really well. So, the reservation was for 6:00, let's say, on Wednesday. We showed up, in we went. I mean, there was maybe a 5-minute wait. So that reservation system was really slick.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. You sound like you're eating something, Chris.
I'm starving over here. I told Josh. He got mad a minute ago, which he'll edit out, but he got mad because I walked across the room to go grab a snack from the mini bar because my gift's not here yet, Josh, from the host. And he just stopped talking. I have AirPods in, so I could hear everything he was saying, but he couldn't live without me in front of him on the screen, so he had to stop.
I depend on Chris's, facial reactions to all my witty remarks, and you were gone, and I was just staring at a blank curtain.
No, I understand. Yeah, I had to close the windows because it was too bright in here. But no, that's good, Josh. I think it's good that you got to try some different food. You got to drive around and get food if you wanted to. And this was going to be a fairly low gambling trip for you, so you weren't too terribly concerned, although it does sound like you played a lot more than you planned on.
I did play a lot more than I planned on.
Imagine that.
I know. It's funny how that works. I never said this was going to be a non-gambling trip, though, so at least I have that, that working for me. I only had so much cash. There may have been a drive to the bank somewhere involved in the trip, but because I had a rental car, but we won't talk about that. Chris.
Oh, wow. Hey, now. I had to tab back over to see your face there.
That, right?
Jeez.
One more thing before we jump to Rio. I wanted to mention the parking situation as far as charges.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you about that because we had that discussion last time. Did you end up paying for parking?
I did not end up paying for parking, but parking was on my bill. I was kind of under the impression, I thought this was correct, that as a guest of Caesar's, I wouldn't have to pay for parking. But when I went to check out, I did have $18 a day of parking charges on my bill. Now, I was able to get those taken off because I made Platinum on the trip, and Platinum gets you free parking. So I ended up not having to pay for parking. But I did have to go downstairs on the last to the front desk the day I checked out, show them that I had made Platinum, which was ridiculous, so that they could remove the parking charges.
Okay, so it is what I thought. You were going to have to pay for parking when I asked you last time. Josh, yes. You're going to have to pay for that. And you're like, no, I don't. So I was right, but thankfully, I guess, you were able to hit that tier threshold, which means you didn't just play a little. You had to play a decent chunk.
Oh, yeah. I played a decent chunk. Well, there's a little more to talk about the end of the story at the end as we wrap up the trip, but my decent chunk, long story short, didn't get me a lot at the end.
Okay, well, let's jump into Friday, Josh, because Friday's when I actually got there, which is what everybody cares about. They don't give a crap about your part of the trip. They care about Chris. What did Chris do?
That's right.
That's what everybody always says. Why don't you just dump that Josh guy off the podcast? He's not.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's what they say.
That's what they say. But so I arrived Friday around 1:00. I was staying at Aria. I got a Sky Suite penthouse. It was not panoramic this time, so it wasn't one of the corner units. But Josh, this time I did get up to the 28th floor, which is nowhere near the top, even though it's a penthouse. But it is
You were on
it's the lowest floor of the higher elevator of the two. So I am slowly but surely working my way up the system.
You could see the buttons that said Sky Villas.
I couldn't push them. Nothing would have happened because I couldn't swipe a card that went with it, but I saw the button.
So if you don't know what we're talking about, in Sky Suites there are two sets of elevators. The higher of the two, or the one that goes to the higher floors. The very tip top of that elevator are the Sky Villas, which I have not seen nor stayed at. But it's nice
Next
to
year,
at least be in the.
Next
you have dreams
year.
now. They can see the buttons. You have dreams.
Yep. Next year, my goals are Noir and Sky Villas. That's what I'm working.
Sky Villas. Gotcha. There you go. We'll see if we achieve those dreams.
Okay, so got to the room, Josh. My gift basket was in there waiting for me, which is awesome because it had all the snacks, which is what I really want right now since I'm starving to death, but it's not here yet because I arrived early. But it had the waters
So
and the drinks
spoiled.
and snacks. Oh, I know, and it reminds me, Josh. I'll probably forget to mention this if I don't say it now, but I did get an email from our PCS.
Yeah.
Right? PCS.
Yep.
For MGM. Asking me about my birthday trip next month. You're coming on with me, asking me, what I wanted to drink, like, liquor wise and all that stuff. And I was like, no, don't worry about it. You'll just waste it. I won't drink it in the room. And so I don't know. Maybe he'll send a cake. I'd rather have a cake than a
Totally.
than
Yeah. I didn't get a cake last time.
I'll eat a cake. Yeah. I'll eat a cake. Hell, your wife got a cake.
Yes, she did. I got macarons, which I know are not your
that's
thing,
true.
but
not my thing. But anyways, Friday, Josh, I got down to the tables pretty quick after arriving. Craps were pretty good. I got about 2 or 3 hours of play in, I think, overall. I made a little bit of money, not a ton, like $1,000, $2,000, nothing big, but it was a winning session, which is awesome because the best thing about a trip is when you start on a winning session. So you feel like, Saturday morning when I get down to the tables, I can buy in with my winnings, my $2,000 or whatever.
Right.
And if I don't have to pull out the original marker, then I feel like I'm really, really killing it.
Yeah, Chris is, as I was slowly draining money this whole trip, Chris is, having winning session after winning session.
I was compounding my winnings.
Yes, some were bigger than others. I did have a winning session. I think I had a $40 win at a Caesar session. And then yeah, I know. And then another $40 win my last day. So those at least helped.
I don't think so. If you earn platinum, those $80 really didn't make a difference.
But yeah, Chris is texting me about all this great money he's making, including the morning that we went and played together. And it didn't happen when I was around.
There was only one other session I lost, Josh. One with you and then one other later in the day that I'll mention later. But yeah, you were the bad luck this trip, it seems.
I sure was. So I woke up on Saturday morning, and as we said, I had already kind of primed Chris that I might not make it over to join him for anything or grab him for anything. But I woke up nice and early Saturday morning, and I thought, hey, I do want to get together with Chris. The one thing I didn't want to do was go play at an MGM property, and we talked about that. I didn't want to. Since I already burned win this trip.
This was a big fight that we had because I'm thinking, like, I'm at Aria. I'm not going to blow a bunch of money at a Caesars property on an Aria trip. And then we talked for a minute and we said, hey, why don't we do something different? Let's go a place that neither one of us are staying. And we talked about maybe Palms, maybe Resorts World, maybe going downtown somewhere.
Wheels.
But Josh had his car and I said, hey, Josh, we've been talking about it for a while. Why don't we go over to Red Rocks and play?
Yep, which is exactly what we did. We gassed up the Mitsubishi and
barely made it over there. We did drive past the new Durango casino that's not open yet, but we drove past it on the way.
Yeah. So we found our way to Red Rocks. We tried to hunt for, this was like 6 o'clock in the morning or 6:30 in the morning on Saturday morning. We tried to find a Starbucks, and I took us to a mall.
I told Josh, I looked on my phone and it said that there's a Starbucks in Red Rocks that was open. And he's like, no, I don't want that. I want one that has a drive-through. Why? I don't know. But he's like, okay, I found one. And I was like, Josh, we have one at the casino. No. It has to have a drive-through. So he drives us all the way over to the mall, the Summerlin Mall. And of course, the Starbucks is inside the mall and it's closed because it's like
Which was
7 a.m. in the morning
on Saturday, right?
So we finally ended up over at Red Rocks inside. We walked past the Starbucks that was closed.
Which was closed. Right. It was closed.
But they have two. The one that was closed there was next to the movie theater. But they had another one right down the hall that was open. But we saw a craps table first, so we just had to walk over to it.
Yes. And so the craps table. So first of all, my thoughts, Chris, I don't know about you, but my first impression of Red Rocks was the casino floor was very nice.
Yeah, very clean, very modern.
Yeah. It was early in the morning on Saturday, so it was pretty dead as far as people around. But we found a $15 table, Chris? Is that right? I think it was 15.
Yeah, one table
Chris
open.
has got a mouthful.
Yeah, you can see me on camera. You know I'm eating, and you throw it right to me.
I'm in the middle of throwing it, too. You're right.
Thank you. Yeah, it was one $15 table, and that was really the only table in the whole pit that was open.
Yeah, and it was, so we jumped right in, and Chris bought in. He bought in for a little more than I did. I was trying to still be as, play as low rolling as I could since I was hemorrhaging money. And
which I did not know, to be fair.
No, you didn't. I don't know if I was completely hemorrhaging at that point. It was just like a slow drain for me. It was more of, it wasn't that I was hemorrhaging. It was just every session was, $500, $600, $700 loss. And then by the time the end of the trip came, it was like, holy cow. How did I spend that much money?
Say, Josh, if you keep having all those losses, at some point you just stop walking up to a table.
Well, I was just waiting for the money to run out, which eventually did. And
honestly, it's a really good thing that you weren't at Aria or Wynn, because then you would have had markers available that you could chase. It was good that you were restricted to cash, actually.
It sure was, yeah. I only had so much I could do. So, and truthfully, I did end up I did come home with some cash. So I didn't go completely penniless. I didn't run myself all the way out.
So let's talk about the table a little bit more, Josh. So we found that one table. It was $15, as we said. Couple things about the table. It did have feature bets. It had the all tall small.
Yep.
Did it pay the full payouts, Josh? I don't even remember.
I think not. It did. You think it did?
Did it have the abridged payouts? I don't remember. We didn't take a picture of it.
You talk. I'm going to check my pictures.
Okay, fair enough. So it did have the all tall small on the table. One thing I thought was interesting, because it was a locals property, it only had 2 times on the field. It was 2 times on the 2 and 12.
Yes.
I thought that was weird that it wasn't triple. But they did, and I didn't even notice until I went to put odds out, and the guy told me they do offer 10 times odds, and that's great.
So, Chris, I just looked through my phone, and it is the bad payouts. So I shouldn't say bad, but the standard strip payouts for the
30 and 150.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, a couple thoughts I had on the craps experience there. We liked the crew a lot.
Really liked it.
It was
good
just
box,
one crew that we worked with. Right. There was a guy, I think his name was Jason, that we played with a lot on our end. Looked a little like combination of like The Rock and Jason Statham or something.
Interesting. I didn't pick up on that, but
he's a big fella.
It was even funnier than that, Josh, because it was almost like I was back home, because when we first walk up to the table, we went to the end of the table we typically play at, and they said, no, you got to come over to the other side. That half of the table's closed.
Oh, that's right,
now.
yeah.
Now, they didn't have the wall up like I'm used to,
right.
But they did have one half of the table closed.
And the funny thing was, I tweeted a picture of this, but they had the table limit sign that said $15 high limit blackjack.
Yeah.
Instead of
only
craps.
on one side. I noticed it when I was standing there. I looked at Josh. I was like, oh, look, this is kind of cool. I wonder when they pull the cards out. And they all looked at me like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, look at
we
your
showed
sign.
them, and they were all laughing at that. And yeah. Let me take a picture of it and everything. So it was a good crew. We had a nice little run. We were up for a little bit at the beginning, and then we kind of dwindled it down, as things went along. We never hit the all small or anything super exciting. And we ended up coloring up, down some, but not huge. We decided, since we had been up, we didn't want to go through our whole bankroll.
No, I think we lost a few $100 by the time it was all said and done. But, we were getting good play in, and I know nothing about the station casino rewards program. I can't tell you anything about it. But I do know that we opened cards when we got there. It turns out I already had one from a long time ago. But anyways, I checked afterwards, Josh, and for our 45-minute session, that's all we had at Red Rock, 45 minutes, playing very low limits. We earned just over 10,000 points, which was enough to get their gold status, which is, I think, their second tier.
Right.
But based on that extrapolation, Josh, we could hit their top tier easily in a weekend.
So we were getting some grief from people online that said we were all of a sudden going to become Red Rocks fanboys, and after our trip there. And truthfully, we were talking about it. We always talk about, when we kind of wrap up, like, would we ever want to come here again? Would we want to stay there or play there? And I said, if they gave me transportation and a nice suite and a decent bit of free play, I'd be willing to give it a shot. And stay there again. I enjoyed the experience. It looked like a good mix of restaurants and that kind of thing. I thought the casino was really nice.
Property, good staff. The craps were fun. 10 times odds. It had all tall.
Oh yeah, I forgot about 10 times odds. Right. The one thing,
literally 3 minutes ago, but I mean, if you weren't listening,
I wasn't listening to you. I have a cold. The one thing that I kind of gave me pause at the very end. We're walking away. We're coloring up, and the dealers, who are nice crews, said, "It's really great playing with you guys. It's nice playing with people who know how to play craps."
Yeah, that was a little scary because we only had one or two other people play with us throughout the time that we were there, and they didn't stick around for more than a few minutes.
Right.
But I guess they're used to players that just don't know what they're doing, don't know how to bet, how to come in, out. I don't know. But that wasn't really encouraging.
Yeah, that didn't fill me with
for like a big trip where we are actually going to throw some real money around.
Right.
But Josh, it's like anything else though. The problem is if you're really going to give business to places like that and you're going to do a whole weekend and really go all out like you usually do, then you got to open credit or send a front wire in, and it's just a whole thing. So 90% of the time now, if I'm going to Vegas, I just decide, is it going to be Wynn or Aria? I mean, Wednesday of this week, that's the discussion I had with Josh real quick. I was like, well, it's only going to be a one night trip because I'm here. It's Friday. I'm going to be home tomorrow by like 2:00 Pacific.
Right. By the time this episode drops, you will have come to Vegas and gone.
I've been home for a day. Yeah.
You're right. Right.
So I was like, do I go to Wynn since it's a shorter trip, or do I go to Aria? And honestly, it came down to I just didn't really want to bother the Wynn host for a one night stay because it that's so not important to him. So I thought it was easier to do it through Aria, and it was. So here I am.
So overall, we liked Red Rocks, and it was a fun little morning. And then I dropped Chris off back for some more winning times at Aria while I headed off to Star Trek and lost.
I don't have a ton that I want to share from that Saturday, but I will say almost every session was a winner, which was amazing. But there was one thing that made the whole weekend better across the board than anything else.
I was
playing. No, that was actually the worst part of the weekend.
Was it my rental car?
No, that was fine too. But I was playing at a $25 table at Aria. It was a traditional table. It was just me and maybe one other person. And then a group of like 3 people walked up, and it was a younger girl and like 2 slightly older people. Maybe one was her boyfriend. Yeah. It could have been her dad. I'm not 100% sure. You never can tell nowadays. But this girl walks up and she says she's never played craps, and you can clearly tell. Dice come to her pretty quickly. She shoots and she goes 0.7. And everybody's all upset because, virgin shooters typically have really good luck. And she didn't. And I was ready to color up because I was up like $1,500 at the time, Josh. And I was like, okay, This is a good stopping point to starting to turn. The dice got back to her one more time. And I was like, okay, I'll give her a second chance. And I even joked with the dealer, well, she's a virgin shooter and it didn't go well last time. She'll definitely kill it this time. So I actually started, Josh, instead of playing 500 on the evens, I actually grabbed a 5 and 9 to start with her. So I was playing 700 on them, across at that point. Whew. Anyways, she started shooting. Josh, she hit number after number after number after number. She made 6, 7 points. Everything was going as well as it could. Every time she'd hit an even number, it came the hard way. And I don't really play hard ways, but I threw a couple out with her shooting so well. And I hit a bunch of hard ways. I hit a parlayed hard way. Ooh. I mean, I was ready to go before she shot. I'm glad I stuck around because she took me from about 3,000 in my rack at one point up to as much as 17.
Yeah, you colored up.
And I still colored up just a little over like 13.5, something like that.
Yeah.
I gave a little bit back after her just to see if it continued. But, I mean, she still made me a solid 10, 12 grand.
I was so jealous as Chris is texting me this.
I texted Josh at one point in the roll a picture of my rack. I was like, well, this new virgin shooter is really going well. And then I texted him like 15 minutes later with a bigger stack, and she was still shooting.
Oh, yeah.
So it was really nice. I mean, you have a shooter like that, Josh, maybe once every 6 months. It feels like something like that happens. So I was really excited to see it. And that session ensured that I was going to be a huge winner for the weekend. I ended up giving back like 4 or 5 grand of it the next table I walked up to later in the evening. But, Josh, it was one of those days where everything was going right. I walked away, I think, with 5 hand pays for the weekend. And it was just, none of them were big,
Right.
but they were all $2,000, $1,500, not enough.
Right.
Those frustrating hand pays where they have to give you
$1,201, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think I had a couple in the 1,200.
You did. You sent me a $1,200 picture. Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me. But 5 hand pays, made a ton of money at the craps table. Had some good food like I always do at Aria. Everybody was over the top nice. I had a Sky Suite. It couldn't have been a better trip if it tried, other than you actually being with me there the whole time and getting to take part in it.
Well, thank you. No, I would have liked to, and we're gonna 4 weeks from today-ish or so, we will be back there again. So together doing our thing.
Probably
so
getting our ass kicked so everything can even out.
That's right.
I'm just hoping I can get one more win in this weekend while I'm here. The only other couple things, Josh, I wanted to mention about Aria this trip, I did redeem my $600 airfare credit.
Oh, good.
Like you
were
did
going to
last
do that.
trip.
Right.
I remember to do it. And a couple things I thought worth pointing out that weren't mentioned last time we discussed it. One, when you have to show them a copy of your receipt from your airfare,
Right.
the only thing that they have to see is the incoming airfare. If you have an outbound flight but don't have an inbound flight, they won't give you the credit.
Oh,
it has to be a flight coming into Vegas. I had 2 flights with 2 different carriers this trip. I think one was on Southwest, one was on Delta. My Delta flight was far more expensive than my Southwest flight, obviously. It was more than the $600 they offer, so I thought, I'll show them that one. And she looked at it and said, I'm looking for the date. Oh, there it is. No, this is your outbound flight. I need your inbound. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to get the full $600 because my flight wasn't $600.
Right.
And then I pulled up my Southwest receipt that was only a couple $100. And she's like, okay, that's all I need. Perfect. Just keep this out for your person at the cashier.
Right.
I showed him, and he gave me, I signed a piece of paper saying I was accepting it, and they gave me the $600. So I think it's worth pointing out, A, it's the inbound flight. It's the only thing that matters. And B, it doesn't matter what the flight costs. You're still going to get the $600. So just keep that in mind.
That's good. That's good to know. Couple thoughts I had as we wrap up that part of the trip. One thing I wanted to mention about the Bacchanal buffet versus Wynn, it kind of was the same as I talked about before, which is Bacchanal has a greater variety, but I actually think the quality of the buffet is better at Wynn. I wanted to mention that for know, people that like the higher end buffets. Next year, we've already got a plan to try the Palms buffet for that during the Star Trek.
Everybody loves that. I mean, that place is always swamped.
Yeah, I think if we'd thought of it, we probably would have done it this trip. But I did want to mention that as we were talking about the buffets, I forgot to mention, we didn't do any other restaurants. So I don't have any, last year we did Batistas and a whole bunch of other things. I did have the Cake Boss vending machine cake once. They had a vending machine over at Rio. I took a slice of the vending machine cake back to my room at Caesars.
It's so funny you say that, Josh. I had time to kill at the airport when I arrived last trip because my driver hadn't been dispatched yet. Right. I got a piece out of Buddy's machine at the airport when I was standing there. And it was very good. It was very good. Yeah. I mean, it's like $8 or $9, but it was very good.
Yeah. So if you don't care about the cost, the little Buddy's vending machine cake is pretty good cake.
Yep, it gets the Chris stamp of approval.
So one other thing I wanted to mention, I told Chris a little bit about this over text when it was happening. So the last day there, I went into the Caesars host office, Chris, to see if I could get, you asked about what got comped off.
Okay.
And I wanted to find out. So I think we mentioned this on the last episode, but so I had 5 nights. This was 5 nights at whichever tower I was in comped in a standard room, either Augustus or Octavius, I forgot now. I did have to pay resort fees, or I was supposed to have to pay resort fees, and nothing else. There's no other, anything else. So, I lost enough and played enough that I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the host office and see what I can get. And of course, Caesars being Caesars, first thing they had to do was take everything off of my comp balance before they'll give me anything else.
That is the absolute worst part of Caesars comping. It's been like that forever.
Yep.
If you have $5,000 in comps you've earned that trip, they will not give you anything for free until they drain your account balance down to 0.
Yep.
And I hate that. Nobody else does that. It's very frustrating. I've never had good experience with Caesars host in general. I found them to be the worst of the bunch.
Well. Yeah.
But yeah, that part of it's what really bothers me about their places.
So, Chris, I find where the Caesars host office is, and there's a guy standing outside the door in a really nice 3-piece suit, kind of a little bit of a chunky guy, but he's got a really nice suit on. And I go in, and there's another couple talking to the host. So I don't know how you are, but there are 2 desks in this host office, and one was empty and one had a host on it. So I just parked myself at the other desk waiting for this couple to finish. So they did their business, and we were wrapped up with the host. And as they were leaving, I started to get up, and then the guy with the suit comes in. Apparently I figured he was an employee. apparently he was also
was waiting.
Right. So he sat down. I just stayed in my, other desk thinking, should I have been waiting outside? But no, I'm going to eavesdrop at this point. And so he had a couple different requests. One of them, strangely enough, related to the Rio. He was apparently in town for some sort of conference or something like that. And he had a few nights at the Rio and a few nights at Caesars. And his room at the Rio, he had been unhappy. I couldn't tell why with the first room at Rio. So they had moved him to another room at Rio. His room at Rio had no towels, and the shower was full of about 2 inches of dirty water.
That's pretty much what you would expect if you went to Rio. Yeah.
Well, and so I did not stay at Rio, as we know, but a lot of the Star Trek, people did, and some friends of mine, and all sorts of horror stories about stuff at Rio and the disrepair of rooms and, doors falling off hinges. In the room that I went in, some buddies were getting together one night, so I hung out, and the bathroom had no working light. So it was pitch dark in the bathroom. You had to have your cell phone light out.
You're just being picky at that point, Josh. You can't have everything. I mean, what do you want?
So anyway, this poor guy was complaining about his room at Rio, and what he wanted the Caesars host to do was give him comped room at Caesars instead of the comped room he had at Rio. The Caesars host was not willing to do that.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty big change. I mean, you could ask for maybe horseshoe in the middle or something, but I mean, going from their lowest property to their highest is a big request.
So then he asked, and this is some kind of different way to, Caesars does things that I wasn't aware of. So then he asked, am I host eligible? Was basically what he was asking. Okay. And Caesars apparently has a score system, and you have to be in the 400s or whatever, and it's based on, game and time of play and all the things we usually talk about as far as make up rating, but they do it with a score. So you have to be in the 400s to be hostable. And this guy was at 168. So
so nowhere near.
I have no idea what my score is or was or anything, but
anyway, if I was meeting right after that, that would have been my first question.
I would have asked what the score was, right?
Yeah.
I should have, yeah. But so I was very nice and tried to turn on the charm and get the host to do anything. She ended up giving me an extra $100 off, of my charges. Oh, I know. Based on, a pretty substantial, actual dollar loss. So I was not, but she worked it out. Your room was, we comped you 5 nights rooms at this much, whatever the value of the rooms was. And so there's only $100 more that I can give you. And she was, kind of nice about it, but
she was polite about it. She just didn't do anything.
But it didn't fill me with warmth towards Caesars. That's for sure. And my bill wasn't really, I don't think I even had much else other than the resort fee, so they wouldn't even comp off all the resort fees.
Internet charges?
I guess, there's probably a little bit of internet charges, a little bit of resort fee, but I don't think I ate much there, if anything. So it wasn't much.
A bunch of parking at the time.
Well, yeah, that's true. When she looked at it, there was parking.
Yeah.
But it just didn't, I was a little disappointed with that based on my play. So I'm not going to be in any hurry to go back. As I said, I didn't mind the experience there. I still think the casino is, just kind of doesn't have a lot of personality to it. The casino floor, I mean, but
yeah, that's my least favorite part. It's so big. It's so vast. There's tables here, slots here, and then you go walk another mile and there's some more tables over here. And it's really dark, in my opinion. I don't like how dark it is in some areas. Yeah, it's not my scene. That's just not a place I enjoy playing.
Now, if you're doing what I did and you're going back and forth from Caesars to Rio 6 times a day or whatever, it was fantastic. You can take a back way. I never had to touch the strip. Yeah. So if as far as a Caesars property to stay to get to Rio, that was a great choice. So I don't regret staying there. I think, if I were going to stay at a Caesars property in general, I'd still probably pick Planet Hollywood or Paris, over Caesars. But for going to Rio, it was perfect.
And I can't overstate this enough. For anybody that's been in Vegas in the past couple months, you're seeing it where traffic has been getting worse and worse with the F1 work that they're doing. Today, the strip was down to 1 lane in each direction. If you had to go down the strip for something, just add hours. It's an absolute disaster. So you really have to use only back roads and, access roads. Josh, when we were coming in today, he literally went through the employee parking and storage garage. It's like, can you just close your eyes for a minute? It's like all their extra food is sitting out in pallets and cranes and lifts and everything else and service vehicles. And We had to open up garage doors that are usually closed to the public to kind of cut through the parking lot. Because he said if we had to go out towards the strip to get in, he said it would add at least another 40 minutes.
Right. Well,
so I only got a mess, man.
I got stuck in it once. When I was going to return my rental car on that last morning, the GPS took me out on the strip, and I'm like, "What'd you do this for?" And I got stuck in it.
I don't want to go out there.
But I avoided it. It's for the same reason. We've had people ask us about, what would you recommend as far as staying downtown so I can stay off the strip? And, Chris and I are not downtown experts, and, we didn't have any great advice on that. But I wish you luck as far as, do what you can to stay off the strip as far as driving.
I agree 100%. So let's fly through a couple things, Josh, since we're already getting pretty far along. One, in a previous episode, we talked about the MGM tier match program that they offered, and they've made a change to it. The new change, Josh, has a couple things. One, after they match your competitor card, instead of giving you to the end of the year to get your status that you have to earn, you now have 90 days from the day that you match to hit a certain tier threshold to keep that status. If they grant you gold, you have to earn 50,000 tier credits in 90 days. Or if they grant you platinum, you have to earn 150,000 tier credits in 90 days. So it's slightly discounted over what it would normally be, but 90 days is not a long time, especially to earn like 150,000 tier credits.
That's what I was going to say. I kind of, I know this might make some people mad, but I kind of like that. I mean, they'll give it to you, but you then have to work to keep it.
Yeah, and I did see that the accelerator bonuses are factored in. Those count.
Yep, right.
So all the things that are currently in place, you can still take advantage of that. But I agree, Josh. We talked about this. We want you to have skin in the game if you're doing any sort of status match, and a lot of people don't. This gives it to you for only 3 months, and then after that, it drops right off. I love it. I'd much rather have this offer from every casino where if I wanted to jump to, say, Venetian Palazzo, a place I don't play, I would love for them to match my platinum or win black status or whatever. And yeah, give me 3 months to earn it and show you that I'm worthwhile to you. I'd much rather do that than them just blindly give it to everybody for a year.
Right. That doesn't water it down nearly as much if they're requiring to keep it for you to actually play at that type of level.
And the only other thing that I saw that really mattered to me when I was looking through the changes is they now finally offer a win status match. Forever, if you matched into MGM Rewards, you couldn't use your win card, black, platinum, whatever you had. You couldn't match across. Right. I never understood why, but now it is officially on the list of properties that they will honor.
There we go. Now I just need win for next year. I'm going to need win to match MGM.
Not happening, but yeah, that would be nice if they would do a match again. I don't see that ever happening again. I think that was a COVID-only thing.
A COVID special, right.
Josh, I have a note real quick before we get to listener questions. You want to mention something about cruise ship craps?
Yes, so I did, as we said, just finish up a nice Alaska cruise, and they did have a casino on the ship, and it had, slot machines and the variety of table games, including 000 roulette and some beautiful $5 double odds, 2 times odds craps with
oh Lord, yeah.
double the field, and about as good as you could get.
Now, did they have a feature bet?
It did. It had all, tall, small.
Oh, nice. That's good.
With the strip payouts. So I
would expect that. Now, here's a question that I have a lot of places like that have such low limits and low odds. Did they cap the all, tall, small at like a nickel or something?
I actually don't know that. That's a good question. I don't know. We didn't get there. I didn't play the all, tall, small. No, I was just really, really low limit. I only played for craps for like an hour on the ship.
You're still crying on the inside from the Vegas.
Yeah, I didn't have any. I did win $85 though. I finished plus $85 on cruise ship craps.
Extrapolate that out if you were playing at your normal levels. It would have been millions.
Believe me, the roll that I came in on was a beautiful roll, and I'd placed the 6 and 8 and was doing a pass line with double odds, 2 times odds, and that was it. And the roll was a 25 roll, and the guy next to me was playing like we play, and he won multiple thousands.
Now, was it like Dr. Mike said, were they forcing you to hit that back wall because you were on a cruise ship?
So a couple, as you say that, a couple things. So you did have to pay the VIG up front on the 4 and 10. So part of the reason I didn't play the 4 and 10, I know. And they were encouraging people to hit the back wall. Now, a lady was a virgin shooter, and I stuck around for the virgin shooter. It didn't turn out as good as yours. But she had a hard time hitting the back wall. So one time they called no roll. They weren't too too fanatic about it. But another time she rolled, she didn't hit the back wall, and it was a 7. But they called no roll. They, at least they were
good. They were consistent. I like that.
So
I'm fine with it as long as they're consistent.
And it was a delayed no roll. Like, we were all really happy that they decided to do it. We thanked the box, the box. Thanks for calling that a no roll.
Well, that's going to be your waiter on the next night at the restaurant. So,
that's right. But,
keep that tip in mind.
Yeah. It was a good enough crew for the little time I was there. They seemed like they had a pretty good idea of what they were doing. But as you'd expect, cruise ship craps, you weren't getting any advantages on the table as far as odds or bets or, anything like that. It had very limited hours that the crap table was open. I think during the whole cruise, I only saw it open, 2 or 3 times. One time it was the same that we had and the same that you have at your local place. There was just 2 dealers. There wasn't a dealer on the one end, so you had to play on just the one side. But it was nice to have it. It was fun. If I'd had, more time, I would have done it a little more. But it was fun, and I finished up, so that was good.
Yeah, that's a win. I know I have my cruise in November that I'm taking the kids on. It's a Royal Caribbean cruise. And of course, they'll have a casino. I don't think I'm going to get to play it all because it's just me and the kiddos.
Yeah,
so
with the kids, that's harder.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to come down with me. And here, you just hold these dice for a minute. No, I don't plan on doing that, but I'll let you know at least what the table minimums and odds and stuff look like when I get there.
It was funny, Chris. We were walking through at one point, and my daughter says, at the very beginning, we had to pass through the casino to get from one place to another, and she said, "Oh, they have an arcade."
Yeah, it's like an adult arcade.
It's a grown-up arcade, right?
I mean, you say that, Josh, but when you have those stupid games that they're putting out nowadays, they're pretty much arcade games.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they even had a grabber claw machine for $.
Exactly. You're like, I played that for hundreds. Yeah. Okay, let's get to the listener questions real quick, Josh. We got an email from Ron with by far the most important question that I think we've ever been asked in Crap Vegas history. I still don't know what to think about this. He said, "Hi guys, love the podcast. So good start so far. Here's where it goes downhill. I had a quick question. When you guys shower, do you scrub your legs, knees, and feet and stuff? I usually just soap up everything else that I can reach without bending over and expect gravity to take care of the rest. But wasn't sure if other people did that too. Can't wait for Cosmo to be part of MGM Rewards so I can try their soaps. Love, Ron." I mean, so great transition between that very important question and his love of Cosmo and their soaps, and then to transition out. So it was interesting in many different ways. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, Chris sent me this email when we got it, and we're like, "What the heck is this? This is of all the all the things that you all send us. This was the most random." First thing I thought, is this Ron? That's the patron that we played with,
I don't know
a
the
couple
answer
trips
to that.
ago or whatever. I don't think it is. I thought, did we?
Could be.
Could be. Ron, if this is you, speak up, or whichever Ron it is, tell us. But so we found out from I think it was Adam Bauer on Twitter, I can't remember who said it, that this was actually a thing on Reddit. That apparently this was a question that, kind of went viral on Reddit.
Okay.
That Ron apparently thought that we would want to weigh in on, I guess.
Our input is extremely valuable, so I can understand why he wanted to know.
So Chris, why don't you start off with to the meat of the matter?
I mean, maybe I'm just an overachiever, but I try to scrub everything, legs, feet, I do it all. I don't trust gravity. I will say the only thing I don't think I've ever really scrubbed on would be like the bottom of my feet. I feel like there's a lot of soapy water on the bottom, so just stepping in the shower, I think, takes care of that. But no, I try to scrub everything I can and stay clean.
I tend to be a little more of the let gravity do its job, kind of below the knee, I would say. Every once in a while, I'll plug the drain in a bathtub to let the water kind of build up a little and get a little soapy water around the...
That's a hack. That's a good one. Good.
That's a hack. There you go. That's Ron. Thanks for the question.
I mean that was by far the most important thing we needed to answer on this episode. I know people are waiting with bated breath to hear what we had to say. Patreon.com/crapvegas. Thank you to all the new patrons who signed up over the last couple weeks. That includes big list this week. Josh, give me time. Cody L, Noah K, Matt D, David S, Mike C, Bill S, Emma R, Derek G, and Tim S. So thank you to you all signing up over the past couple weeks since our last episode. It is much appreciated. And what's our new content on there this week, Josh?
So yeah, as you said, Chris, thank you so much. Our last episode was a bit of a riff on an article that came out from the 1980s on etiquette as far as it related to horse racing. And we kind of took it and ran with that a little bit. And one thing I wanted to say, Chris, that kind of spun off of that I thought we'd use this Patreon moment to talk about. So, Chris, how do you feel when you buy in at a table, you wait your turn, you buy in, not mid-roll, you wait till a point's made or somebody sevens out or whatever. You buy in at the proper time. But in the time they're cutting out the chips for you, they send the dice and a new roll starts. What's your thought on that?
Fuck the property that does that, Josh. I hate
that
casinos.
happened on the cruise ship, which is why I asked.
It happens a lot. Encore Boston Harbor, they did it every shooter. And I've seen it at Aria before and seen people really mad. And if I'm the shooter and they're sending it while he's still cutting checks, I either push them back or just leave them in front of me and I say, I'll wait for you to get that taken care of. Because it's just rude.
So how do you play the role? Well, so if the dice go off and they're not, they haven't got to you yet, like you've put your cash out there, but they haven't handed you the chips. So they end up handing you the chips mid-roll at this point. Yeah. Do you jump in and do your 270 across, or do you then wait?
Usually what I'll do, even though I'm very mad at the dealers at this point, usually what I'll do when they start cutting it out and I see them starting to send the dice, I'll say, give me 270 across out of that action.
Right.
And just say something to say what bets I want out of it.
That's about what I do too.
And then eventually he'll throw, and then after the dice land, he'll start to pull that money out, put the bets up, and then pay me for that. That's typically what I do. Although what usually happens is I say that and he throws an immediate 7.
Right.
And then they just take that out and just keep it forever.
Yeah.
But no, I can't stand properties that do that. People are nice enough to wait. That extra 10 seconds to cut the checks and push it is not a big deal. And you're going to get more money because a lot of people won't give the action out of it. They'll just wait.
Right.
So you might as well get them the money so they can bet with it. It's the whole reason you're in business. I don't understand the dealers that do that, and I'm not a big fan of it.
100% with you. So we dove in on the last Patreon episode to circle back to a lot into kind of some of those etiquette issues and a little bit into superstitions and things like that. So again, thanks so much to our new patrons and all our patrons. We have some very good stuff on Patreon, so I hope you appreciate it.
Yep, definitely appreciate it. Upcoming trips. Josh, you and I will be out there the weekend of September 15th for my birthday trip. So that's very exciting. What shows did we end up deciding we were going to do?
Let's see. We're going to see and we're going to do a nice dinner. And
is that all we decided on?
Might be it for shows. I think
we talked about Potted Potter, but then we found out it was a nighttime show. We didn't know if we were going to be able to squeeze it in because dinner's right in the middle of all the show times, it turns out. So,
but Chris is kind of moving my direction. Going to stay a little longer than usual.
I was going to leave Sunday morning, but I've now changed my trip so that I'm going to leave on the red eye Sunday night. So Josh gets an extra full day of me, which I know he's excited about.
I need it for your luck at this point.
And I pray to God that my luck continues with Josh actually present, because we don't seem to help each other luck-wise when we're together. But you never know. But we're looking forward to that trip. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it'll be good to see you again, Josh. I know you've been traveling around like crazy, so we haven't
lots of trips. In fact, I even have another trip between now and then. So hopefully all will go well. And yeah, if you're around that weekend, you know where we'll be for Coffee Dice usually every morning. And so that's the best time to see us.
Yeah, and if you just listen to this and you haven't heard about our plans in the past, that is an Aria trip. So we'll be playing at MGM Properties that weekend if you're looking for us. Don't come to Win for Coffee Dice that morning. And I guess this means I don't get a birthday gift from Sabrina.
Oh, we'll have to have somebody bring you one over.
Well, I mean, you have no problem running over there and eating at the buffet. So maybe I can just send you over there, get some coffee out of your comp dollars, grab my gift, and bring it back to Aria. How's that?
Sabrina, can you just take this off my comp dollars?
Josh, that would be the best of both worlds. I think the Tower Suites bar is my favorite part about Wynn. So if we could get the coffee from there and see Sabrina and then take it back to Aria, that would be a win. There we go,
yeah. If we could just transport a couple dealers too, just get a few dealers to relocate.
I mean, you have to say Rick because he's the only one.
We got to get Rick over to Rick. Come on transfer over to Aria.
Yeah, but other than that, whatever. Okay, quick reminder for everyone: please subscribe, like, and review our podcast on your favorite podcasting app, or visit our merch store at crapvegas.com/shop. I've been asked over and over again when we were going to run another sale on the website because people don't like to buy things at full price. It seems, Josh, everybody's cheap nowadays. So in honor of my birthday month coming,
in honor of your birthday month.
Well, we did one for your birthday, so I feel like I deserve to have one for my birthday as well. But in honor of my birthday, Josh, for the next month or so, I guess, we're going to run 20%. I don't know. We just play it by ear sometimes. We're going to offer 20% off all purchases on the website by using promo code BROTHERS again. Brothers was very popular last time. So go over to crapvegas.com/shop, promo code BROTHERS. 20% off everything in the store. Fall is coming, Josh. It's starting to get cooler at night, so you better go ahead and get that coffee dice hoodie.
Absolutely. And it reminds me, and I apologize, I didn't make a note of who it was, but somebody tweeted a picture of them and the friend in some of our merch. I can't think if they had the coffee dice sweatshirt, and they had the I'm risking divorce for this and the Heart 8 for a Nickel t-shirts on. That's what it was. And that was really nice. Thank you for tweeting that. I'm sorry I didn't make a note of the name, but appreciate that. It's great to see our stuff out in the wild.
I agree 100%. Anything else you want to talk about before we get off here, Josh? Because I need to get down to the tables and start winning some money.
Yes, you do. Last thing I was going to say, Chris, so I won't go into the whole details because it's a lot, but I had a little bit of a travel horror story going on this cruise ship. So we went, long story short, live in the Seattle area. The cruise was going out of Vancouver, Canada, up to Alaska. And, packing the morning of the cruise, finishing up, I guess it was the day before the cruise. We were going to fly up to Vancouver, stay overnight, and then go on the cruise. Got everything packed up, ready to go. I'm putting the finishing touches on the suitcase. My passport is nowhere to be found.
Oh my God, I can't imagine a worse feeling. But I'm one of I don't know if you're like this, Josh. Like my kids know, like I'm a super over the top planner. I like to make sure everything's organized in advance. Everything's where it's supposed to be. My kids know that if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late.
Right.
And it drives me insane when people show up a minute before something's supposed to happen. But I know when it comes to like passports and stuff, I've had that feeling before where I've reached into my pocket, my driver's license or passport wasn't there. Right. It is the worst feeling in the world.
So I had taken my passport with me to Vegas when I'd gone to Vegas for the Star Trek convention because my driver's license is starting to get a little worn. And sometimes it doesn't work through TSA. If they ever have to look at my driver's license, it causes their machine to gum up or whatever. So I've just started taking my passport. So I had it with me. So we go, and the cruise was just the very next day from the day I got back to Vegas. So I'm looking for my passport. I'm like, oh my God, the passport's gone. It's not where it should be. I
left it in Vegas. Yeah.
My daughter comes in and says, what's wrong? And I said, I can't find my passport. And she's like, how bad is this? I said, it is as bad as it gets.
Really, really bad. Yeah.
This is, and I didn't want to tell my wife because I knew she was going to just go bananas.
Oh God, yes. Yeah, I know.
I can't find my passport. I can't find them, and so finally I told her I'm emptying the bags. I'm doing everything. I can't find the passport, Chris. I had, I'd been to work the one day in between the two trips. So I'm like, maybe I left it at work. So we had enough time built in. We got the car all packed up. We drove to my office. The passport's not in my office either.
Oh, so no. Yeah.
At this point, we're saying, okay, what do we do? I'm taking my wife and daughter to the airport. I'm going to send them off to Vancouver. They're going to board the cruise ship. The kind of the backup plan was I would fly to Ketchikan, the first port of call on the cruise ship, and meet them there.
Oh yeah,
I was already making plans to. If I had to fly to Vegas that night to see if Caesars had my passport.
Oh,
and then I would fly straight from Vegas to Vancouver. I had all this stuff going on in my head. So I dropped them off at the airport. Like, off they go. Gave them hugs and everything.
See them for a while. Yeah.
Off they go on the cruise. This super special vacation we'd been planning. And here I am. I was, virtually in tears over this. Sorry, this story is taking longer than I meant it to, but I go up to the top level of the parking garage and I start to call Caesars. I'm already calling Caesars, trying to track down the lost and found. And I'm going through my bag and I found it. It had slipped in a little notebook that I had.
Oh,
I texted my wife.
The feeling of relief that you must have had.
Yes, I texted my wife and said, I found it. And she said, huh? And I said, I have the passport.
She said, oh, damn, I was really excited to go without you there for a minute.
That's right. I quickly had to repark the car and run in and, it all worked out fine from there. But that got me thinking that we should talk about Vegas travel horror stories. And I have a couple, not as bad as that, but a couple funny Vegas travel stories. And so for our listeners, if you have any Vegas travel stories that you think are particularly funny or horrible, let us know before the next episode. I want to ask Chris what his are next show. I'll tell you a couple that I have. But if you have any, let us know. You can call the voicemail line or send us an email. That's much
easier. Unless you really like hearing my voice read off your emails. Just use that. That makes life a lot easier. And here I am, Josh, as a happily divorced man. I'm thinking if this was me in your shoes, and I took my passport with me to Vegas the day before I was leaving on a cruise and I lost it,
Yes.
my ex-wife would have gone off on me like crazy, just, screaming that you had to go to Vegas, you had to do this. And I can't even imagine the argument that would have started. So, bless you finding your passport at the right time.
Oh my, I didn't cry, but I'm sure I was, if I were a crier in situations like that, I would have cried. It was that, I'm going to miss this
feeling.
really special, because I was stupid and left my passport somewhere. I had taken it out in Vegas and put it in the safe. So I thought, did it fall out? Did it fall onto the floor right by the safe and all that kind of stuff? So it was terrible.
I don't think, Josh, honestly, I don't think there's any worse feeling than thinking that you lost your identification.
No.
I don't care, if I lose a credit card.
Right.
If it falls out in the car or disappears or whatever, you can cancel a credit card, have it reissued, get it next day if you need to.
Yeah.
The world doesn't fall apart. But when you lose your driver's license, it's like the worst feeling in the world knowing that I'm going to have to go do steps A, B, and C to try to get it reissued. And I don't have a driver's license in the meantime. I can't travel. I'm not supposed to be driving a car. And, all those thoughts that go through your head. I hate dragging this segment out any longer than we have to. But this past week, Josh, I needed a couple documents notarized.
Right. I'm a notary. I could do it for you.
Yeah. Well, and I have 2 notaries at my office, but both were on vacation last week when I needed it notarized. So I had to go up to the local UPS store to get some documents notarized. She notarized them. By the way, they charge $10 a page, which is the most insane thing I've ever seen. $10 a signature. So I had to pay like $30 to get all these notary signatures. I had to give her my driver's license so she could verify who I was and all that. And I got the docs notarized and I went to leave and I was going to, ship them off at the office that day. Well, before I got back to my office, I needed to run by the bank, and I was closing out a bank account. I was in the process of transitioning banks, so I swung by PNC Bank to close this account out. I was standing in the front of the line after waiting for a minute. I went to reach in my pocket because I knew they were going to need my driver's license and probably my debit card.
Right.
And my license was gone. And I was like, oh, no. And I have horrible memory, so I didn't even remember that I used it at the notary's office. That wasn't in my mind. I was my God, what happened to it? So I literally kind of panicked in line and walked straight out to my car. And I got and started driving off because I was like, I can't wait in line to talk to somebody. I have no license to show them. And they're confused why this guy just got in line and just walked right out. I was pulling down the street and I'm looking at everything and I still can't find it. I forgot I had stuck it in my pocket when I was at the notary. That she handed it back to me. I stuck it in my pocket. And I went back to the bank and she looked at me like I was crazy. She's like, weren't you just here? And I was like, yeah, I couldn't find my ID and I didn't think you could be able to help me. So I left. Oh, it's not a big deal. I was like, no, to me it is. It's a horrible feeling. I don't know what this has anything to do with Vegas or crap Vegas or any of that other stuff.
Well, mine had stuff to do with Vegas because I thought I left my passport there. So that's how that.
So that applies.
We do want to hear the Vegas horror travel stories if you have any.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll put a call out on our social media accounts on Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that.
That got me thinking. This was about as bad as I can imagine it being.
That's pretty horrible. But
turned out
anyways,
okay.
Guys. We did our best for trying to remember what happened 2 weeks ago today. My tables are calling me downstairs. So I'm going to get off of here. Thank you all for listening. We do appreciate it. And we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you very much. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Vegas, here we come.
Thanks for listening to the Crap Vegas podcast.
Have you ever been to Vegas?
Check out all our recent news and our Vegas trip calendar by visiting crapvegas.com.
See you in Vegas.